you all. My name is Sally Penny. I'm a barrister and I'm the founder of Women in the Law UK. And I want to start, Karen, by asking you, please, to tell us who you are. And then I've got loads of questions, more testing than that, I'm afraid.
I wish I was where it stopped.
Yeah. But thank you for giving up the evening to join us.
No, not at all. My name is Karen Kabweru Namilemu. That's the extent of my surname. It says Karen KN. I'm a family law barrister. I practice in the East Midlands. I'm a London girl born and bred, but it was my pupillage that brought me up here. Sally asked me to talk on this, how to reach the top. And the interesting thing is, I took that and I said to Sally, I don't actually think I'm at the top. I think as women, we sometimes suffer with the whole imposter syndrome. But I say it like this. I got to the top in the sense that I got my pupillage and I was able to start my career, but it never ends. And there's always things that you may want to do and continue to do in life. So at the bar as a practitioner, I'm seen as junior counsel, but there are a number of options for me to look to progress my career. Those of you who do law, you will know that you can either apply to be silk, apply to be on the bench, but the law also opens other avenues, and it's other options whether you continue practicing. I've been practicing for about 15, I think going 16 years now. So it's whether I want that career change. Sally's already said that I bake on the side, and I do. I actually, in lockdown, decided to do something good for the community and our key workers, and I decided to bake for them, and I think it was nearly 100 cupcakes that I did and individually packaged for them, just to say thank you for the work they do. But yes, I do bake traditional Caribbean rum cakes as well, so I do that. But my main job is being a family law barrister. I don't know what else to say, Sally.
Fantastic. Well, don't worry. That's really good enough. So, Karen, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Some of them are a bit testing, really. I'm going to ask you about Black Lives Matter a bit later on, and about, the stiff upper lip, perhaps, that minority lawyers get on with it, where prejudice, and women, really, where sexism and those issues arise, and we kind of carry on, and really where you're at with Black Lives Matter. So that's probably going to be my third question. But the first question I wanted to ask you was about your practice. How have you found it? So these sessions are like when Oprah met Michelle Obama. So whether you're a silk or a millionaire, I ask the same questions. Sean's been on here. Or you're a boxer, you're a female boxer, or a footballer who plays for England. So they're really, about a conversation. How have you found being a family law barrister and a black one?
I've enjoyed being a family law barrister. Every day is different, and I think even at the bar, every day is different. No 2 days are the same. Our clients, you meet a whole host of people. So you've met wealthy people, as well as your mum who lives on the council estate with her challenges and has had a very traumatic upbringing herself.
Yeah.
You become case hardened, and it doesn't mean that you lose the sensitivity and the compassion. However, you do, because everybody has their own story. And so I remember when I first, not even when I was at the bar, but it took me, I'll be honest with everyone, it took me nearly 5 years to get pupillage. That was the struggle that I had. But I remember the first adoption that I did, and I was in private practice working for a solicitor's firm. And I remember it was a young girl, she was younger than me, and I had been with her from child protection case conferences all the way up. And it was a final hearing, and I think from memory, it was Joe Delahunty QC So she was junior counsel representing her. And that was a real hit for me because I'd never encountered that. I don't have children, but that loss, because you build up that rapport with your clients. And so when I say everybody has a story, you can't be going through that every day. And I remember Jo saying, "Is that your first adoption?" And saying, "Yeah." And she's like, discreetly, still with the client there, but managing the room. And it's those experiences that now I'm seen as junior counsel, but still when the new pupils come through, they say, "Well, you're senior to us." But it's those experiences where you look up to people. So Silks like Jo, Barbara Mills, how they interact and deal with their clients. And she managed the room so well. And she just said, "Take a moment." And I made myself absent, composed myself, and came back in. But you do that on a daily basis. You see shocking things. Your well-being is something that there wasn't so much of it earlier on back in the day when I started, but there is a big drive, and I think across organisations, which is really helpful. And that's probably why I do bake. I think when Sally asked me, I said it's a form of therapy. But it's things to unwind and keep you sane, and you can't not do things that you enjoy, because if you don't make that time, you're just going to be on that trundle wheel, which it can go on and on and on. People are fabulous. You sometimes hear the name Care Bears. That's what we're sometimes termed as. We fight hard. I think people think that maybe family is an easy option. I would say different. Sometimes I feel that I'm a counsellor. Sometimes I feel that I am a therapist as well as counsel. So you have different hats depending on the circumstances of the client. Interesting when your client decides they want to do law. That's what I've had a recent encounter of. And she actually said, "Could you mentor me?" And put you in such a difficult position because it's your client. I had to explain no. But it was interesting because she was a Black client as well. And so her experiences, I think that's very important. I know Sally's going to go on to it, but coming into an environment, it was very much male dominated when I started. That's changed, which is a positive ratio of males to females, but also as a minority entering the profession, the stats weren't great when I joined. And so as a female, Black female family practitioner, I think the thing that I would say is hypervisibility. You're easily spotted. If you do something great, wonderful, everybody knows and knows exactly who you are. But also, if you do something wrong, which is always the thing, you don't go out to, but your mistakes and your errors are also well known, and you sometimes feel you're more judged, and partly not necessarily people are doing it directly, but you can often feel that way.
No, I mean, it's a good point. We've talked. I mean, I think I did a session about this. You can't really afford to do so because everyone then remembers the Black barrister, of which there are a few, who made the big boo-boo. I want to then ask you about Black Lives Matter, then Karen, including, because there's a very distinct report from the Runnymede Trust about people from minority backgrounds like us, and including people who perhaps are more working class, changing their names to succeed in I know. So, firstly, let's talk about that.
It's quite interesting you say that, because I remember I was asked in an interview whether I would shorten my name. That was asked, but not that it's right to do so. But if you think I was going for interviews I was called in 2001 and started doing interviews from 1999. So it was a different time, but I'm not saying it was right to ask such questions. So yes, I have been asked whether I would shorten my name. I think because people don't attempt to say my name, I would often joke and say, if I like you, I'll ask you to say Miss Cabweru. If I don't, I'll ask you to say my whole name, just to make them feel uncomfortable. But I think, given the current climate, I think people are now changing that. And actually, of late, and judges as well, I've had them ask, how do I pronounce your name?
Yeah.
And they're making more of an effort. And they're saying my whole name. And I think for me, I perhaps now have the confidence not to shorten it. I've just allowed people to do it. And that's the thing that's been really hard. People just do it off their own accord. It's very rarely would people ask me, can I shorten your name, or how do I pronounce your name? And people just do it. And of late, I've actually taken a stand, because always on documents, on orders, it's my full name that is written on there. And now I am saying it's the whole name and asking for it to be said. And I think a name of any individual is important. And I take the time, if I can't pronounce it, even if I have to ask several times, how do I say it? Have I got it right? Somebody's name, it's their identity, and it's crucial that you take the time, you take the effort. And for me, even if somebody doesn't pronounce it fully correctly, the thought that they've attempted it and they're trying to say my full name, I actually have more respect for that. But even in pupillage, when I did crime, I remember counsel, and they're friends of mine, they kept on referring to me as my learned friend, to the point the judge just went, your learned friend has a name, say it. And actually that was really good, because to think that was a judge saying that before all of the whole Black Lives issues has come to the fore, they recognised. So you hope they would. So yeah.
I muted myself.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, great. I was saying it's interesting because the whole name thing can have several things. My name, of course, doesn't sound like what a black person should have. And my father, who's a doctor, used to go for numerous interviews for consultancy posts, and he would be sent out the room because they'd think it was the wrong person. You know, he was a 6'5" black man who couldn't possibly have that name. They'd say, you know, get out, you're in the wrong place. And he'd be saying, no, I am Mr. Penny. But just the point, I remember a dear friend of mine who's white and blonde, and we were doing a case together, and this is years ago now, but I said, I'm sorry, how do I pronounce your surname? And it was Faux. So I didn't want to say Fox, because I thought that would sound wrong, wouldn't it? It's clearly a French origin. And her name is Rachel Fawkes, so it's not as one would expect it. And it's just funny how we don't make that effort when the person looks a bit different or otherwise. So no, I think that's really interesting. So far as Black Lives Matter is concerned, do you think times are changing? And do you know, on here we've been having uncomfortable conversations. The Friday nights, you know, every Friday, the audience are white and black. And I'm about building allies, and it's everyone's problem, not just for the minority. No. But where do you think we're at, and how do you see our profession?
There was an interesting cartoon, I think I tweeted it actually, from the New Yorker. And it's a man climbing a hill. I can't recall exactly what was written on the sign, but in effect, it was the road taking to combat racism and for equality. And the caption underneath is, we've got a long way to go. And so we're just at the very bottom of that mountain.
Yeah.
I think you've made the valid point that conversations need to be had and are starting. I think people are afraid. I often think to myself, I'm the minority and this is having an impact on me, yet I'm the one at the current time who feels that I've always got to start the conversation, and then people feel comfortable. I like the point and agree with the point, Sally, that we all have to engage in this conversation. I think people have to educate themselves. Even if people educate themselves, it doesn't necessarily equate to change. You can't change somebody's mindset, opinions, and they may never change. But I think the conversation now, following the Lincoln's Inn talk, I think somebody tweeted and said, I've never been in such a frank conversation. Yeah. And my response was, yeah, these conversations have been had for a long time. The question is, have people actually been listening or wanting to listen? So I think the difference at this point is that the world is listening. What often happens in such situations is the knee-jerk reaction. And I think people need to reflect and pause. There's been numerous reviews, often the recommendations not put in place. So we don't know whether they would be successful or not.
Yeah.
The question is that I often pose as well, do we need more reviews when we already know the stats? I've looked at some of the stats at the bar, and what you find is that the proportion of Black, and it divides it into the different ethnicities. Black applicants, small percentage, not equating to the population, or perhaps necessarily numbers who've qualified or gone to bar school, and they dwindle as you go through the process. And so I think the bar is looking at itself. I find that Black practitioners tend to be pigeonholed. So I know that there's going to be research in practice areas such as your commercial, PI, civil areas. I think they're looking to do research there. I know that there's talks on circuit as well level and at bar council level to look at what changes can be put in place. Me personally, I think recruitment is a big area. I know that you have social mobility and equality and diversity to tackle these issues, but we've had such committees and it hasn't necessarily got the change that people want to come out of it. And I think they're great initiatives. But I sometimes throw back to the social mobility argument that even within social mobility, you still have the pecking order and the pyramid going down. And why is that? So I don't profess to have all the answers.
No.
But these are the questions. I think it's not just taking the stats at face value. I think it's actually going deeper into them. Such as interview practices as well, experiences of applicants. We've also discussed about the blind applications. Some people are in two minds about that. Affirmative action, is that the right way forward? There's many different options that they're going to have to look at and assess, and I really don't know what the right option is, but I think people are committed to change. And that's the difference that I'm seeing. People are actually talking, wanting to learn and actually wanting to change and make a difference. And I think take that positivity and let's all run with it, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just interested in your opinion because I have a friend, Shock something. You can follow her on Twitter and what have you. And she is radical. She's like, it's not for me to teach you about prejudice. But, oh yeah, listen, honestly, when I experience any incidents of racism, and I've experienced a lot, right? But I got a shocker one, and I thought, have I gone over the top here? Thinking this has happened when my children have been present, and I was really angry. I phoned Shola. She's like, listen, my sister. She's from like bloody Hackney, but she talks like, she arrived. Yeah. Listen, my sister, and so I understand the different points of view, but the reality is we all have lots of great white friends who think this is unacceptable, and the people who are protesting and marching are not all minorities. They are
No,
our
they're
white
not.
colleagues and friends. So I think that I get the anger. You need different levels, and you and I are different in experience and age. I've been
Yeah.
for 20 years. You're younger than me. Some of the anger and the tolerance, I think, is a bit less in younger people. So it's good to see what will actually happen. But I wanted to ask you. You were saying about recruitment and entrance. For me, that's not where it's at. It's
Well,
at
it starts before that. I would agree, Sally. It does start before that. For me, the whole drive, we've all seen the petitions going around with regards to education. That's where it starts from. It
yeah.
starts from grassroots and the opening of opportunities. That's where it starts. We all know that school, opening doors, how teachers are giving opportunities to some and not always to everybody. It starts all the way back then, because that's where your careers start. I sometimes read CVs when people ask me, and you sort of think, when having children now, you sort of have to think about their life when in the womb, because people have done so much and are so young. And it's amazing what you see people have been able to do. But the problem is not everybody has those opportunities. And I think education, particularly coming into our profession, I look back, simple things. I didn't know much about the scholarships or what was available to me and options such as that. I am the first person who did law within the family. So I had no idea as to what was the right track. It was sort of like stumbling in the dark. And so having access to us as practitioners from before, having that knowledge, or even just to put the idea and plant the seed and make people realise that, I know they've got I Am the Bar, which is trying to break down barriers and show us in a different light. It's those kind of schemes as well that need to go in and start from beginning. So I'm not saying it starts at recruitment, but I'm talking about those coming in, because I know that there are plenty of students, minority students, I say that across the board, not just black, but minority students. I know the stats are different for each ethnicity, but there are many, but why aren't they getting pupillage? And so I come from that element, because there is a pool that is already available to start that change and build up the next generation of lawyers. But to keep that going, it also starts from way back in the school system. So yeah.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose my focus has been, or our focus on here has been, keeping women in the law. So we deal with the retention problem, and we try and get women to progress. Sean's already having a glass of wine. And making sure that we have more women at the partnership levels, at the higher, the managing partners, so that we lead from the top. And I'm really interested in what you're saying about that existing pool and some of them. And I agree with you to a lot. I wrote that children's book, one, because I was fed up with homeschooling, and two, when I speak in schools, they all whisper and say, oh, she's really posh. Some of them are like, oh, can black people be lawyers? And I'm like, yeah, we've got one here. And a clever one. I'm not saying that to blow my own trumpet. There is a thing about when children don't see, I've met Sean's son, and she's got 3. I'm sure he doesn't think, oh yeah, that's Sally who's brown and is a lawyer. Because when you start early with children, you educate them. So they never have prejudices. Prejudices are taught by grown-ups who pass it on. So, your point is really interesting, and I just think it's a visibility point, actually, in the areas as well as
I think it's, when you say plant the seed, that is, it encompasses visibility, doesn't it? Because the point is, if I have somebody who comes in, who looks like me, can talk about something, and you plant that seed that makes them think, do you know what? Yeah, maybe I could. That's it.
Yeah.
There's also a part of me that visibility is important. But I also think there's also a part about sending out the message that, do you know what? It doesn't matter. So although it's nice to have the voice of the black female going in. And I remember doing the school mooting competition, and I had probably one of the most underprivileged schools within the competition, and the majority of were of BAME ethnicity. And I really saw then the importance of what you're saying, visibility, because when we entered into the competition, they call you Miss, which is really sweet. But they were like, Miss, the questions that you asked, oh, what's it like being a black barrister? And like, how do you get on and everything? So I had those when I went into the school. But the difference and the visibility came when we actually got to the court on the day of the competition. And I had them come up to me and say, Miss, why are they looking at us so differently? Why are they staring at us? And so some of the girls were in their hijabs, all black students, and all the other schools were predominantly white, if not only white. And you want to protect, and that was the part of me that said, maybe it's because it's first time you've entered, you're not familiar to them. Some of the schools have been doing this, but difference and visibility, you really saw it and they felt it. And that's when I realized the importance of the role of going into schools to make them realize that, yes, do follow your dreams. It doesn't matter. You can come from humble beginnings. But the person who also did it with me was white and male. And when he gave his talk, it was also just as empowering, not only hearing it from myself as a black female, but also hearing a white male colleague of mine who said there's no barriers, who could give that same talk, and not necessarily from walking in my shoes and my experiences, but to recognise that this is a profession for all. So I also think that it shouldn't just be like for like, it should be the whole profession making the next generation realise that, do you know what, there are no barriers. This is a profession that embraces equality, protects that, fights against discrimination, and doesn't condone anything that goes against any of the protected characteristics. So I think there's a balance, but I do believe that visibility is really important. I love the campaign. I don't know if you've seen it, Sally, or anybody in the room. It's called Afro Visibility, and it was started by a mum about, as a professional woman, having afro hair. That's always an issue. Me wearing my head tie of late, I'm having people go, oh, okay. It's something that's a part of me. It shouldn't be an issue that's made of it. And my hair is my hair. Embrace it. And that's what her campaign is about. This is afro hair. This is what it looks like. I don't have to straighten it to conform. I don't have to straighten it to get a job. It's not there to be touched. Just appreciate it. The same way my friend, she's been blonde today, she's gone bright pink tomorrow. Like the hair dye. End of the conversation. It's part of an individual. So it's making it, it's that normality about things which are normal, but it's getting over it's in the room.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, we've spent a lot of time on Black Lives Matter now, actually, just because it was so interesting. You'll have to come back on that special Friday night. I want to talk a bit more about some of the other interesting aspects of your career and your life, really, and continuing to be. I will come back to cakes in a minute, which is an amazing story. But can you just sort of help me with, just some really quick questions? Who inspires you, firstly? Secondly, what advice would you give to your younger self, the one who was trying for all these pupilages, 5 years? And it is hard to get pupillage. I appreciate that. I know there isn't 20 years between us, but I feel like there is. No, there's probably, 10 years between us. How you kept going. So advice you would give to your younger self. So who inspires you, advice you'd give to your younger self? And really, when have you had those really crap times? Like you just think, I'm going to just pack this in or whatever. And how did you get over it? A time that's been like, oh, this is pants. And so from that, what's your one sort of tip? And then we'll go to question and answers, really.
Okay. Right. If I take the who inspires me, that is a hard question, actually, because I think if I look back, I think you said one, Michelle Obama. I think she's fabulous. I would say individuals who perhaps have had a struggle that perhaps I've related and seen them struggling and getting through. I remember doing at school the life of Nelson Mandela, and as my school prize we had a book token, and the book I chose was A Long Walk to Freedom. And so his struggle and his story is one. I remember studying the civil rights movement as well. And so individuals there in your life, I must admit, I used to love Oprah as well. So they're silly ones just for silly reasons, but they're non-law related. It's because of their stories and their journeys, and you take something from it. But thinking about it, and totally not from a career perspective, and this might be a bit soppy for the room, but I probably would say my mum. And I say my mum because she's been an inspiration to me because of the strength and resilience she has had. I remember the story that she always tells me I might not have been in this country. So when we hear of Windrush and deportation, she's told me many a time the story of when she was in that cell and she was on the cusp of being deported. She always goes, I'm not that bright. And she always says that you and your father have got the degrees. But I always say to her, I actually think you're the cleverest one out of the three of us. She's got such strength, such kindness, her as a person and as a woman as well, from where she came back. And I remember when she took me to the house where she grew up and the stories that she had to endure, not being able to always go to school, having to make those sacrifices, but make a life. And just the struggles that she's had, but she's always had a strength. She's always taught me to carry on. And because she's always carried on, no matter what, she's loved by all friends and family, and that warmth that she has and taking that time. And so I think part of being successful, you can be great, whatever the career, but I think there's other aspects to it that make you a rounded person that I think actually having that bit extra, it also helps to succeed as well. So I would say she is the one who probably inspires me the most. Yeah.
Now, the next question.
My younger self, you said, and low moments.
Yeah, low moments and advice to your younger self. And then I want to allow time because we'll need to finish really.
No. I think probably low moment and younger self probably tie in together for me, because that journey of trying to get pupillage and applying and not getting taken on, trying to get a job as well, so there were periods that I wasn't working as well, that was a really low period. And you should never compare yourself, and it's always hard because even when you're in an organisation you still do it when you're striving. But I think I looking then, you try not to compare yourself, because I had people around me getting pupillage, I had people around me progressing in their own life journey as well. And I felt rock bottom. You question your ability. You've been successful to a certain point. You question why not. And it's picking yourself up, really. So to my younger self, I would still continue with that perseverance. I think the knowledge that I have now would assist me more. So I might have started differently at the beginning because I'd had more knowledge now. So it's researching a bit more and knowing, and not always being afraid to ask as well. So I think being different and not perhaps what the profession looked like at that time, there's a bit of fear am I going to get there? Not knowing, trusting, just you're in the circles, but you got through. So note to younger self is perseverance would still be there. Don't give up. I would still tell myself. Maybe trying different things. And I think now you're seeing a different generation where that drive, as you said, taking no nonsense and standing up a bit more. And I suppose that goes with the changing times. Low moment as well. It's funny you say, I said going back, that's one low moment. But I'd also say another low moment is actually quite prevalent now. I think lockdown for everybody and what happened with the killing of George Floyd, particularly as a Black individual in society, has brought a number of issues to the fore. And I think talking to colleagues and friends, one of the things is those internal struggles that you've had to go through, the put downs, the comments that you've brushed to one side, well, it's done it is it's brought it to the fore. So actually, my journey, I've actually had to look at it and bring it to the fore. All those things that you didn't want to talk about, you didn't bring up. You're recognizing and addressing them now a bit more because people are asking about your experiences. You're talking about it more, whereas you sort of let things go and just got on. So when I say low, I'm not hitting rock bottom in the room. Don't worry about that. But it's really reassessed things, but it's also made me think it's positive and it's a change that can come out of it. So that's a bit of a two-pronged answer.
No, it is. And I think it's good. I mean, look, God forbid, I did a post on LinkedIn and people were like direct messaging me saying, oh, so powerful, I didn't know. And you think, I'm a Black woman. Of course I've experienced masses of prejudice and racism. I'm bloody good at my job. That doesn't mean it goes away. And so on and so forth. But I think you're right. You know, people... you know, it is stiff upper lip. It is stiff upper lip, you know, forward regardless. And lockdown is bringing that out and is just coming out of it. Thank you for that. So my final question really is, I always ask about well-being, a bit like on my podcasts, because, you know, burnout is high at the bar. You spend all that time trying to get pupillage, or formal training. and then you get in the job. You know, you work your socks and arse off, and then you're like, is this it? Is this it?
No, it's not. It's not.
You know, so, and most people leave at 10 to 12 years, particularly women, because women suffer a double deficit in the law, not just in the law, in the professions.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what the evidence shows, that actually they suffer the most. Never mind, you know, the treatment of Black men, women, because they've got two intersectional difficulties. So for us, so I just want to, you know, what you do for well-being, and that brings us nicely onto cakes and baking for the firemen. I think I like baking on, and the NHS. So, and it is a bit of a little business as well, isn't it? So,
really random.
How
Sally, you're breaking up.
Oh, forgive me. So really, the question is, what do you do for well-being in addition to your cake baking?
So what do I do? Usual thing, people let off steam at the gym, have a drink on a Friday night. Holidays, now that's one thing that I'm missing now and sort of worrying about travel. I'm actually, well, I was actually meant to be in New Orleans this time for Essence, so a bit upset about that. So it's funny, I think we all socialise in different ways, but I think now it's quality time with those nearest and dearest. It's very right what you say, Sally. It doesn't end. Once you become a tenant, you're still going because you're a junior tenant, you're trying to progress your career, so you keep going. So that time where you're investing in the career, you sort of sacrifice other things. And I think that that's not just familiar with the bar. I would think that happens in many professions. So now it's quality time. It's like spending time with the family, catching up with friends. Everybody's diaries are all manic anyway, so that's it. Spa days I do like, and so I'm missing that pampering element. It's looking after yourself, because we've all got the habit of just thinking we're superwomen and just keep on going. If your body says sleep, sleep. And I've been on the wrong side of that when I've just kept on going, and it's pure burnout and it's not helpful. So it's taking time out. Even if it is just to go for a walk in the park, lay in the sun, it's what makes you happy. Some days, if you just want a pajama day and just watch the telly, and that's it, so be it. Read a book, paint is what. So I think I made the mistake of thinking lockdown, everything's going to stop and cancel, all the hearings are going out, but that didn't happen with me. So I had planned to do my balcony, so I've actually blocked some time. So it's like my little garden on the balcony. I've done some planting, I've done some painting of window boxes and my table and chairs. So it's just things, making a happy place for you as well. And that was meant to be my summer happy place, which is halfway done. Hopefully we'll get there before the good weather finishes. But yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, can we all give Karen, I'm going to put us back on the grid because there aren't as many of them tonight, so that's good. A big round of applause, please.
Thank you.
I love that. You've still dodged the cake question, but I'm sure there'll be...
I probably didn't hear it, Sally.
How you've ended up baking cakes for the
well, I literally, it's a concept in my head. I love Caribbean rum cake. I remember my mum baking, and my grandmother used to bake as well. So I just remember licking the wooden spoon. And for those that had it, traditional black cake usually comes as a big black cake that you slice. And if I baked one of those for one and ate it, then I really wouldn't be fitting in this room in Chambers if I kept on eating it. I love it. So the whole concept was to have a luxury alcoholic cupcake, so a bite-sized piece that you could have take away as you do. And so that's where it started. And I've not really pushed it. People who know I bake, they ask and they put in orders. And so I do it as and when. I do big cakes as well, for celebrations, weddings and birthdays. So I've done that. And I just enjoy it. Literally signed up for a couple of courses. So like friends, people have done sign language, take up a language. I did a couple of cake decorating courses just to sort of like get the basics. And then I have literally just taught myself the rest of it. And so the reason why I did it is my mum, she was a nurse. I think the NHS is amazing what individuals do. Also, my friend, he's a mental health nurse in a hospital, and I thought care homes and those smaller individuals aren't also getting the thanks. So I said to him, if I can't send them to the hospital, because I wasn't sure, he said, yeah, bring them over. And so I started looking for other places. So I gave them some. The hospital then said, yes, please, yes, please. So I baked for them. And when everyone's doing the clap, what they said is all the firemen come as well and all the police, and they all clapped outside the hospital. So I said, well, anybody who's there can take. And then the officer at the fire station I was speaking to, they had got called off to an emergency. So we went, no, I'm not there now. I've just been called out. So I took some to the station for them. So it was just my way of saying thanks. I'm fortunate enough that I am able to have that little bit extra to do that and not think about the cost. And so it was a way of donating, saying thank you and making it more personal for them. And they have said, are you going to do it again? And so I want to block out some time and do it again at some point for them, because I enjoyed it. It was nice talking to the staff as well. My neighbour as well, he works in the critical and A&E, so he was able to go through to the hospital, so he took it to the COVID wards, and they were grateful because a lot stays on the lower wards but doesn't always filter off to them, so they were grateful as well, which was really nice. because being in such an environment, it is really difficult and it is a stress. So it's just to cheer people up if I can.
Fantastic. I just love that. So that brings us to the formal part. The one last question is about romance and love.
Probably the worst person.
I know. Well, I'm introducing this, and we've got some great other interviewees coming up, but they won't know I'm going to ask them about romance and love. It's my favorite subject. Honestly, the nurses who know me, when my son was in hospital, I was planning weddings, negotiating contracts as well, their contracts, but love and romance. And it's really this, that, you know, you're in a job that's great. Family law is stressful. I used to do it 20 years ago. Didn't agree with me, or I didn't agree with it. I was very good at it, actually. But it's more for you than me. And it's hard work in the job. When have you got time for love and meeting someone? Because I know more and more junior barristers. I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but you know, and how do you see that playing out? Because it's so important, the partners that we choose in our careers now. So just very quickly, then I'll go to Sian for her question.
Well, in lockdown, you're only left with online dating, aren't you? So I've already put it out there. I am single, never been married, don't have kids. So that's me. Not that I don't want. Yet. I'm going to say that, put that out there. It's going to happen. It is hard. I think there's those who are in a career as a female, how a man sees you, there's a lot of assumptions that are made. It's not great. You find yourself, I think what I do is I don't mention my profession at the outset. And there's two schools of thought, because people say you should be proud of what you've achieved and they should accept you as you are. But yes, I'm a barrister, but I'm Karen first and foremost. The Karen that you're going to know day to day and live with and be with isn't the one that you're going to find in court every day. So it's online dating, speed dating I've done. And also just, you find that's it. When a lot of your friends are married, there is the odd one who might have a single friend and so forth that you can just meet, and weddings, there's still people getting married. So just your normal way of going out and meeting people. I sometimes think that maybe I might meet them when I'm in Sainsbury's with my trolley for one, and you pass like ships in night, just go past one another and you turn, and then who knows. I think an opportunity is always there. You never know who you're going to meet. And I think the only thing I would say is just being open and receptive to opportunities that may arise, because you never know. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.